All right, good evening. Welcome to our Old Testament studies in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 24. We've got a short 22 verses here this evening. David's still on the run from King Saul because crazy King Saul's trying to kill him. David ain't never done anything to him, just been good to him. Best friends with his son, played the harp for him and all this kind of stuff, but Saul is feeling threatened. He knows that David's going to take over the king one of these days, but David wasn't going to do it by killing him or anything like that. It's just, but remember, old King Saul's demon possessed. When David would play the harp, the demons would leave for him, and we're going to see how demon possessed people act because they wasn't all in the Old Testament either. There's some around us living today too. So chapter 24, verse 1, it came to pass when Saul was returned from following the Philistines, he'd went out to fight with the Philistines. He started out after David, but then he got distracted had to go to a place and take care of some Philistines. And so somebody told him, the devil's always got a way of stirring up trouble and telling, and he did. So somebody went and told old Saul, said, "Oh, David, he's in the wilderness at En-gedi. You better go get him." So Saul took 3,000 men. Remember, David's got 600 men. Now Saul's going after him with 3,000 men. Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel, the whole Israeli army. And he went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. They went off to the wilderness at En-gedi where David and his men were hiding. They were living there in a cave. He came to the sheepcotes by the way, where there was a cave. And Saul went in to cover his feet. I think that means Saul left his troops outside. They'd traveled for a while, and for some reason it's like Saul needs to go in and cover his feet. Means take a nap, I think. He's going to lay down and pull his garments down over his feet. So he goes in, he's going to cover his feet. But as the Lord would have it, not necessarily just irony, it is ironical, but it's God's providence too, that the very cave where Saul goes in there going to take a nap while his army's out there standing guard is the cave where David and his mighty men were already in there hiding. So David and his men, they remained in the sides of the cave. Saul didn't know there's anybody in there with him. He just went down and laid down on the ground and covered his feet and going to take a nap. And the men of David said unto him, "Behold, the day which the Lord said to you, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do to him as it shall seem good unto thee." This is the day, they're saying, like the Lord said it's going to be. Then David arose, and he slipped over there real quiet and sneaky, and Saul must have been a really heavy sleeper, and David probably must have had a really sharp knife of some kind, because he was able to cut the skirt off of Saul's robe, and Saul didn't even stir. Cutting the skirt off somebody's robe was kind of like a sign of humiliation too. I haven't heard this in years, but when I was growing up, I never saw it happen, but it must have been a thing at one time in Appalachia, because the old men would still say around the deer camp, if somebody ever told about missing a deer, they'd say, "Well, we're going to have to cut your shirt tail off." Apparently way back there they did that. If somebody shot at a deer and missed it, they would cut their shirt tail off as a sign of humiliation, saying, "Hey, this is not acceptable around here." So David cut the skirt of Saul's robe off. That may be where it came from here out of Samuel. You reckon a lot of old Appalachian traditions came out of the Bible? So David's cut his skirt tail off, his robe tail off. And it came to pass afterwards that David's heart smote him because he had cut off Saul's skirt. In other words, David thought, after it was done it, he said, "I shouldn't have done that. That was the king, and that wasn't the right way." While he was an evil king, and we don't like him, we don't like the things that he does, but that's not, we ought to have respect for the office because he is the king. And I'm here to tell you, a lot of you Christians, you ought to think about this. We don't have to like the person who's holding the presidential office at the time or the one to come or the one after, but you still should have respect to that office. And some of the stuff that I see posted is just making fun and humiliating people, and that's across the line. We shouldn't do that. And I hope this ain't Christians, but I also see some of these banners out on the main drag sometimes. It's got words that we don't even say out in somebody's yard that says something. And little children are having to ride by there and maybe just learn how to read and sound them words out. So you shouldn't do that. Be a decent human being, let alone a Christian. So David, even though it was King Saul, demon-possessed King Saul that was trying to kill him, he said, I shouldn't have cut the robe off his skirt off his tail off his robe like that. Shouldn't have cut his robe tail off. And he said to his men, verse 6, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed. And still today, I believe that just because we don't like the people in office and they ain't doing the things that we wish that they would be doing, we've still got to say, well, Romans 13 says the powers that be, the politics that are in existence, he said, those are ordained of God. That's to keep us in line in our country. We've got to have some kind of government because we're wicked people. And so think about this. David said, Lord forbid that I do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth my hand against him, seeing he's the anointed of the Lord. So David stayed or restrained his servants with these words and suffered or allowed them not to rise against Saul. All David was doing was running from him, trying to save his life. He wasn't attacking him or trying to assassinate him. But Saul, he rose up out of the cave and went on his way. Now, old King Saul's woke back up. So he rubs his eyes and he gets up and it's dark and he goes toward the light at the mouth of the cave and he walks back out. At this point, he don't know anybody was ever in there with him. He had troops standing guard. And he walks back out and he don't know that he's missing his robe tail. So David arose afterwards and he went out of the cave. And he cried after Saul, saying, My Lord the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth, and he bowed himself. He treated him like a king. He treated him, as bad as he was, he treated him with respect toward the office that he held. And David said to Saul, Wherefore hearest thou men's word? Or why do you listen to people's talk, saying, Behold, David seeks thy hurt? Because it wasn't true. Behold, this day thine eyes have seen how the Lord had delivered thee today into my hand in the cave. And some bade me to kill thee. And he could have too, couldn't he? But my eye spared thee. And I said, I'll not put forth my hand against my Lord, for he's the Lord's anointed. Moreover, David's talking to Saul out there hollering at him, says, My father, see, yea, the skirt of your robe's in my hand. And that's the first thing old King Saul knew. He probably looked down at that time, didn't he? For in that I cut it off, the skirt of your robe. And I didn't kill you, though. I killed thee not. Know thou and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand. I've not sinned against you. Yet you hunt my soul to take it. You're trying to kill me. I ain't done nothing against you. And David says, The Lord judge between me and you, and the Lord avenge me of thee. I'm going to step out of the way. David said, I'm going to let God take care of you. Vengeance is the Lord's, not ours, right? But my hand will not be upon thee. And David's going on and saying, As saith the proverb of the ancients. Remember that ancient proverb? He says to him, Wickedness proceeds from the wicked. In other words, you are the way you act, King Saul, and your actions say you're wicked. But my hand will not be upon thee. After whom is the king of Israel come out? David goes on. Who's the king of Israel come looking for with 3,000 men? Of whom dost thou pursue? He said, I'm just a dead dog compared to thee, or a flea. I'm just like a flea compared to you. The Lord therefore be judge and judge between me and thee, and see and plead my cause. God will plead my cause, and he'll deliver me out of your hand, King Saul. Verse 16. That's going to be Saul's time. It came to pass when David made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, I think old Saul was convicted by the words that David gave him, and knew David was right, that he wasn't doing anything against Saul. Saul was the one on the wrong here. So Saul says to David, verse 17, Thou art more righteous than I. You're more righteous than I am. For you have rewarded me good, whereas I rewarded you evil. I treated you bad and you treated me nice. which is really the golden rule of the New Testament. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, not do unto others as they do unto you. So Saul said, you're more righteous than me. He's under conviction, ain't it? For you've rewarded me good where I've rewarded thee evil, verse 18. And you've showed this day how that thou hast dealt with me. Saul realized he could have killed me just as easy as cut the robe off. For as much as when the Lord had delivered me into your hand, you didn't kill me. Thou killest me not. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? Saul knew that I wouldn't have done that for you. Wherefore the Lord reward thee good, for you have done that good to me this day. I hope the Lord blesses you, David, because for what you did to spare my life. And Saul says, and now behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king. Saul knows this. He's knew it for a while. That's why he's after David. It's just God's plan, though. It's not like David's going to assassinate him or take it over. But Saul knows that, hey, David's going to be king, and David's going to be a more righteous king than I am. That's what bothered him, ain't it? I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel be established in your hand. And Saul says, now, since I know that and I believe that, I want you to make a deal with me, David. Let's make a covenant. You swear now, therefore, unto me by the Lord, that you'll not cut off my seed after me, that you'll treat my family right. Because as you read through the book of Kings, and not only in the Bible but outside the Bible, what happens in kings' families a lot of times is if one king gets assassinated or something happens to him, they'll go and kill all the descendants that would be in line for the throne, so somebody else can take the throne. So Saul knows that and says, now whatever happens, says, David, promise me that you'll treat my family right. You won't kill all my family. Which David wouldn't. Jonathan's his best friend, remember? Swear now, therefore, unto me by the Lord, that you'll not cut off my seed after me, and that thou wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David sware unto Saul. He promised him. And Saul went home. But David still didn't trust him, and rightfully so, because Saul's going to be right back after him again. Even though Saul in this chapter gets under conviction and says, you're more righteous than me, it ain't long for he's trying to find David and kill him again. Even though he knows what's the right thing to do. And I said, I think that's kind of describes sometimes people who are inhabited by demons. Even though they know the right thing to do, they can't do it because the evil wins out in them. That's why we need the Lord in our hearts. So he'll clean house them demons. David swore to Saul, and Saul went home. But David and his men, they got them up into the hole. They went back to the stronghold. They wasn't going back out in public until Saul was gone because they didn't trust him, and rightfully so. We'll pick up there next week, chapter 25.